Welcome to I Roll It, I Review It, where 3 dice rolls pick the movie. To start, I need to see where I'm watching. 3 is on Tubi. Now roll for genre. 13. That's foreign. Now roll for the movie. 1. Expensive candy. Ooh, this looks sexy. I'll check it out and I'll be right back. Good grief, I was not expecting this! Expensive Candy is from 2022 and was directed by Jason Paul Laxamana. It's about Toto. He's a 30-year-old history teacher, and the teenagers in his class find out he's a virgin. One night, he inadvertently winds up at a brothel where he meets the ridiculously attractive Candy. Only Candy doesn't come cheap. He gives her handlers everything he has and spends the night with her. She thinks it's sweet that he's so taken by her, and also that it was his first time. He comes by the next night, and instead of having sex, they agree to get some dinner, and they have a very pleasant evening together. After that, Toto starts to do whatever he can to get enough money to see her again. Problem is, he can't afford her on a teacher's salary. However, she's smitten by what he's willing to do to see her, and the two start an unusual relationship. Wow, I was expecting a completely different movie. It's actually a genuinely bittersweet love story. It starts off kind of funny, with Toto being completely flummoxed whenever he's around Candy. Candy's off her game, so to speak, when Toto's around because she's used to guys only wanting one thing from her. Then about halfway through, things take a turn, and I assure you, it's not the way you think. I was thinking either she just uses him for everything he has, or she does the Pretty Woman ending and they ride off into the sunset. However, it was neither of these. It was something that I was not expecting. In fact, it gets downright sad. I was feeling some genuine emotions here. What is this, like the 4th romantic movie I've seen on here and I'm all invested? It didn't hurt that Julia Barreto, who played Candy, is gorgeous. Shortly into the film, I was thinking this would end up being a sort of offbeat love story, which it was in a way, but it was more than that too. A little soap opera-y, yes, but still quite good. It's funny, sweet, sad. By the end, I was going, no! What a sap. The movie was shot in the Philippines, and while I've seen a ton of films from here, the vast majority were from the Corman era. It was nice to see just how far their filmmaking had come over the years. It was well written, well shot, and just the right length. Nothing dragged, and I was much more interested in this than I thought it would be by looking at the cover. I figured it was going to be a softcore film like the other films from Viva Studios. That's the thing. Despite this being about prostitution, there was no nudity in it. Well, I take that back. There was some man-ass at one point, but that's it. Expensive Candy was really good. A bit of an emotional roller coaster as I wanted things to work out, and I wasn't sure where it would end up. Gets a solid thumbs up from me. Welcome to I Roll It, I Review It, where 3 dice rolls pick the movie. To start, I need to see where I'm watching. 3 is the dice favorite, Tubi. Now roll for genre. 8. Comedy. Okay, now I gotta roll for the movie. 2. 2 is The Perfect Kiss. Why do I keep getting these movies? Alright, let's go check it out. I've seen a bunch of these kinds of films, so I have a feeling what I'm in for. I was, in fact, not prepared. Do you remember how much I hated Kickin' It Old School? This movie was worse. Way worse. So much worse. I'd actually watch Kickin' It Old School again instead of this. The Perfect Kiss was written and directed by Tina Adams. This movie made no sense, but I'm going to try and explain it. Tanya plays a bumbling real estate agent. Her relatives are trying to set her up on a date with this oddball named Igor. Oh, and there are also some Russian spies who are on an undisclosed mission, and they occasionally need to lock Tanya in her room. She gets fired from her job for screwing up a $15 million deal with a guy, Brian, who immediately falls in love with her. However, he tries repeatedly to be nice to her, but she yells, "Stranger danger." No, really. She meets a doctor. Oh, wait, let me quote him. "I work in the hospital as a doctor. I am a brain surgeon." Something that sounds so believable. He kisses her and she feels it's the perfect kiss, so now she's in love with him. She is, in fact, an idiot. Since Tanya screwed up the real estate deal, she's out of work and she can't stay with her relatives, so she goes to live with her best friend who's married to her ex-boyfriend. Only her friend ends up leaving her husband for another man. Doctor, I am a brain surgeon. Unbeknownst to Tanya. Tanya doesn't know what to do, so she meets up with Dr. I'm a brain surgeon, who tells her that she can live at his place, and since she's a realtor, she can sell it. She moves in and can't seem to understand why there are photos of this black guy and his family all over the place. Igor then moves in too because, sure. Then the guy in the photo shows up and he's the real owner. He allows Igor and Tanya to live there if they become his servants. During all of this, Tanya occasionally runs into Brian, who's trying to woo her, but she just chases him away. The only person who's trying to be nice to her. Tanya's friend realizes she's being taken advantage of, so she goes back to her husband, but she convinces him that she left because it was his fault and makes him beg her to take him back. Some random person who they never say who she is shows up at the house and tells Tanya that she needs to go and accept love from Brian. So now, taking advice from this random stranger, she realizes that Brian is pretty great. After finally talking to him, she goes to meet him at his giant mansion. Her relatives, the spies, have now taken jobs for Brian as his new chefs. He then kisses her, and it's the perfect Christmas kiss, and the movie ends, and I'm in pain. This movie was like an hour and 15 minutes long, and it felt like an eternity. Everything in the movie was frustrating and made no sense. It was like the writer just had a bunch of zany ideas for scenes, wrote them on Post-it notes, told everyone to film them, and figured they would just stitch the whole thing together later. So many weird things in the movie. From the parents who have spy cameras everywhere, including their daughter's room, to the kid in the subway not playing the saxophone, to the characters that show up and we're just supposed to know who they are. It's irritating. The entire film feels like walking into a movie halfway through every 5 minutes for the entire length of the film. I think the script was written by people who don't understand what words mean. This story was so bad I thought it could have been written by AI, but I tested the theory, and AI actually wrote a better story than what this was. 90% of the cast has this thick accent, so perhaps the whole thing was lost in translation, like Nightmare Weekend. My wife loves Hallmark movies, and so I've seen a bunch of them over the years. I thought this would kind of be like that. It most certainly was not. Those movies, while often corny and cliche, have a certain charm to them. This had none of that. The story made no sense, and everyone, especially the lead, was beyond annoying. Actually, I take that back. The only bright spot in the entire film was Landy Cannon, and he's barely in it. He's done a few of these romance films, and the others that I've seen him in, like Home for Harvest, were infinitely better. I like him a lot, and I felt bad that he was in this terrible movie. It's ridiculous. At the end, he tells Tanya that she's the best, even though he's never spoken to her for more than 2 minutes. Beyond that, every time he had interacted with her, she was a complete bitch to him. Tanya's character is one of the dumbest, most unlikable people on the planet. Let me just stress, I am not talking about the actress. I'm sure she's a lovely person. I'm talking about the character of Tanya. She was an idiot. The Perfect Kiss is hands down one of the worst movies I've ever seen. It's slightly above Getting Lucky, which, if you've seen that one, you know how bad that is. So it's not worse, but it's close. This movie was so bad it made me angry. I watched all 5 Twilight films back to back over 11 and a half hours, and it wasn't as bad as this hour and 15-minute movie. I couldn't believe how bad this was. The Perfect Kiss gets the biggest thumbs down I can fit on screen. I really Really hope the dice rolls give me something decent next. I'll gladly settle for even mediocre after this. Welcome to I Roll It, I Review It, where 3 dice rolls pick the movie. First thing, I need to see where I'm watching. 3 is Tubi. Again, 3 in a row? Now I gotta roll for the genre. 5 is drama. Now it's time to roll for the movie. Please give me something better than last time. 8. 8 is Dad Crush. Oh, this has potential. I'll see you in 2 and 2. That was pretty good. Dad Crush is a 2018 made-for-TV movie from director Damien Romay, although it seems like it often goes more by the alternate title, My Teacher, My Obsession, which makes a little more sense than Dad Crush. The movie's about Riley, a teenager who's having a hard time making friends after transferring to a new high school where her father's the new English teacher. She befriends Kyla, and the two become very close, until she learns that Kyla is trying to bone her father. The movie's essentially the song Don't Stand So Close to Me by the Police made into a movie. I mean, the teacher's name is Professor Sumner. Sting's real name is Gordon Sumner. Sting was an English teacher before getting into music, and he based the song on the 1955 Nabokov book Lolita. They also throw in a few references to other Police songs. The movie feels a bit like the Alicia Silverstone movie The Crush, which may be why it has the alternate title. Although, unlike The Crush, Kyla goes a bit further with Riley's dad. I was kind of surprised at how graphic this was for a TV movie. Not explicit, but a little more graphic than I was expecting. So much that I don't think I can post the part I'm talking about on YouTube, but we all know YouTube gets mad if you post anything saucier than afternoon kids' TV these days. The father was of course jacked, and I'm surprised all the girls weren't chasing after him. Well, there was one other girl who was a little flirty, who I initially thought was Char Lanazard because she really looks like her. I saw this got a ton of bad reviews on the IMDb, but I thought it was fine. Fun, really. It's some trashy entertainment. Made-for-TV exploitation. It's more of a thriller than a drama, but whatever. The cast was good, and Kyla did a believable job of playing a manipulative teenager. There's a really funny sequence later in the film where she beats herself up that reminded me of Marky Mark in Fear. She was about that level of crazy. Dad Crush, or My Teacher, My Obsession, is entertaining trash. Very silly and enjoyable. Another surprisingly entertaining film out of Lifetime TV. The kind of movie that leaves plenty of room for cracking jokes and giving it a good ribbing. Don't be surprised if you eventually see me doing a GBF video on this. It's cheesy fun and gave me some good laughs, even though it was playing it straight. I don't know, maybe after suffering through The Perfect Kiss, I'm going easy on this one. Whatever the reason, I liked it fine. Dad Crush gets a thumbs up. It's not a good movie per se, but I found it entertaining. So if you decide to watch it, just take that into account. You aren't getting something like The Crush, you're getting the made-for-TV knockoff several decades later. Welcome to I Roll It, I Review It, where 3 dice rolls pick the movie. To start, I need to see where I'm watching. 1 is Netflix. Now roll for the genre. 13 is independent. Okay, now to roll for the movie. 8. 8 is The Swarm. I hate bugs. Although they do make for good horror movie villains, since they are the one thing that really disgusts me. Well, let's see how this goes. That was okay. Not as bug-infested as I was expecting. The Swarm is a 2020 dramatic horror film from France. It's about a woman who raises locusts to turn into flour. The bugs aren't breeding as much as she needs until she discovers the magical formula: human blood. So essentially, it's a more serious version of Little Shop of Horrors. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that I don't like bugs. Although admittedly, this was not as bad as I thought it would be. Not nearly as disgusting as something like The Nest. I kept expecting it to get to the point where it would get under my skin like the last segment of Creepshow, but it never went that far. As you would suspect, as the movie progresses, the locusts need more and more blood. This naturally leads to bad things happening. This wasn't bad, but it could have been better. Apparently, the director made this as a mashup of Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds and the French TV series Plus Belle la Vie. The acting was fine, with the mom being really good. Although her motivations seemed odd. She started off needing to increase her yield because she was losing money. And once the locusts start breeding more, she bought more greenhouses and was selling more and more. However, this never seemed to impact anything. She went from trying to make enough to survive to making money hand over fist, and then she was still trying to make more. Although aside from her increasing her greenhouses, there never seemed to be any increase in anything else. Well, she did get her daughter a nice present, but that was about it. There never seemed to be a reason as to why she was so obsessed with her work now that she was actually turning a profit. She just did it because the movie needed her to. The effects were pretty solid and the locust swarms looked believable. Some of them were real, but I imagine the large groups were CG. The Swarm was okay. Not a bad film, but not nearly as good as it could have been. It felt restrained, and I was thinking this was going to turn into something biblical. It never went that far, which was a bummer. The Swarm gets a mid. Welcome to I Roll It, I Review It, where 3 dice rolls pick the movie. To start, I need to see where I'm watching. 2 is Amazon. Now roll for the genre. 18 is action. Now I gotta roll for the movie. 15. Okay, 15 is I Am Rage. Wasn't this already a Nicolas Cage movie? Oh wait, that's just Rage. And then there's I Am Wrath with John Travolta. Anyway, let's see how this one is. That was really fun. There seems to be a lot of woman-led action movies lately. Some of them are ridiculous, but I like the ones that at least make it seem plausible. I Am Rage is about a cult that abducts people and brings them to this giant mansion in the middle of nowhere. While there, they kill them and drain their blood. One of the cult members starts dating this girl with the troubled past, thinking she'll be an easy target. He brings her to meet his family, but what they don't know is she's essentially a superpowered mutant. Due to some experimental torture that happened to her years ago, she developed heightened adrenaline abilities. During that time, she was trained in just about every form of combat. The end result is whenever she gets mad, her adrenaline spikes, and she is a super mega badass. So all these cult members try to hunt her down, thinking she'll be easy prey, and she goes berserker mode. It's like the most dangerous game, and they're hunting X-23 without the claws. Which is kind of funny because the lead did a 10-minute X-23 fan film last year. I enjoyed this a lot. Erin was played by Hannah Bang Benz. She's trained in MMA, Muay Thai, kickboxing, and as of 2023, she's a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I say this because all of her fights in the movie look really good. There are some times where it might be a stunt double, but for the majority of the time, it's clear she's the one doing the moves. By making Erin essentially a mutant, and with her obviously doing most, if not all of her stunts, it made the whole story more believable and more enjoyable. Plus, it opened the door for some outrageous fatalities. There are a few kills in the movie that are just not possible for a regular human. Somebody in this is a Mortal Kombat fan. It also helps that the dudes she's fighting are about average size and not the Undertaker. On top of all that, whenever possible, she's using a weapon. The movie isn't pure action. It's got a decent amount of setup, but once the hunt's on, it's pretty much Erin beating the crap out of whoever gets in her way. The movie moved at a brisk pace and it blew right by. It was a cool spin on a classic story. Solid action and a genuinely unique overall premise. It didn't reinvent the wheel, but it kept me very entertained. I'll gladly give it a thumbs up. Hannah was an excellent lead, and I'm looking forward to Primal Games, which just came out back in May. It's from the same director as this one. Welcome to I Roll It, I Review It, where 3 dice rolls pick the movie. To start, I need to see where I'm watching. 4 is Fossum. Now I gotta roll for the genre. 19, horror. Since Fossum is all about the subgenres, let's see what we get. 6 is survival. Now I gotta roll for the movie. 3, The Sand. Is this like a newer version of Blood Beach? We shall see. I'll be right back. That was highly enjoyable. Also, I was partially right. This is like a newer version of Blood Beach mixed with Tremors. The Sand is from 2015 and was directed by Isaac Gaboff. It's about an all-night graduation party at the beach. A bunch of kids drank too much and crash out wherever they can. When they wake up, they find the only ones that are there are the ones who aren't on the sand. Some are in a car, some are on a table, a couple are in the lifeguard tower, and one guy's stuck in a trash can. They discover that there's something under the sand that will, kind of like Deep Rising, not eat you, but rather drink you. What a fun movie. While yes, it's taking notes from Blood Beach and Tremors, it's still its own thing. I thought it played out well enough and was able to carve its own identity. I don't want to spoil it, but the beach creature was explained well enough and not over-explained. I enjoyed what the characters were trying to do to survive, often with tragic results. There was one character I was rooting for, and oh no, he got it the worst out of everyone. Absolutely brutal. My only major gripe with the film was that the CG was hit or miss. Some of the effects looked good, and then others looked tremendously fake. It didn't take me out of the film, I just thought they could have been a little bit better. Most likely a money issue, and I get that. They did the best with what they had. A few times they were really impressive, so I know it was possible. The characters were all fine, no really incredibly annoying ones. They actually had a few funny moments with them, where I was happy to see how their interactions went. The first few moments made it feel like the movie was going to be awful, but that was just everybody in party mode. Once things got serious, they were acting about how anyone would if you were incredibly hungover and trapped on the beach with a monster who was trying to drink you. The Sand is one of the better, newer creature features I've seen in recent years. I'm giving it a thumbs up. Welcome to I Roll It, I Review It, where 3 dice rolls pick the movie. First thing I need to do is see where I'm watching. 2 is Amazon. Now to roll for the genre. 1 is sports. Now roll for the movie. Last sports movie was Kickin' It Old School. What fresh hell am I in for this time? 10. 10 looks like it's going to be 3 Ninjas. Wow, I feel like I got off really lucky with this. Anyway, it feels like this should be in comedy or kids movie. I'm not complaining, I'll gladly take this over Ready to Rumble. Anyway, let's see how this is. That was okay. 3 Ninjas was from 1992 and was directed by John Turteltaub. The year after this, he directed Cool Runnings, which I genuinely love. He also directed the Paul brothers' second film, Think Big, which gave me one of my all-time favorite movie quotes.
Chicken bone, lucky, lucky chicken bone. Chicken bone, lucky, lucky chicken bone. Chicken bone, lucky, lucky chicken bone.
Anyway, 3 Ninjas is about 3 brothers. They spend every summer with their grandfather, who trains them in the ways of the ninja. This was coming on the heels of the monumental success of the various ninja movies of the 80s, early 90s, as well as the Karate Kid franchise. They kind of combined those elements to make a kid-friendly ninja movie. The trio run afoul of a criminal organization, and they have to use their kid ninja skills to fight back and save the day. This was not as good as I had hoped, but still fine. I have a feeling if I would have seen it back in 1992, I would have liked it more. It's a lot of slapstick and the occasional poop joke, which normally would have been right up my alley. And kinda was. It's not that I didn't like it, I just kept feeling like it could have been better. A few weeks before this, I saw Surf Ninjas for the first time and really enjoyed that one. It had a lot of the same elements, but leaned more into the slapstick humor and silliness. Plus, that had Ernie Reyes Jr. and Sr. doing much of the action, so the fight scenes were more dynamic. In Three Ninjas, the kids were doing their best, but unless you're Kane Kasugi, you aren't going to be doing very believable ass-kicking as a 10-year-old. Three Ninjas was, again, okay. Silly, kid-friendly action aimed at kids. I hope there's some kids who saw this back in the day and it inspired them to pursue martial arts. Anyway, Three Ninjas gets a mediocre. It's not bad, but really not anywhere near as good as I was hoping. I wonder if the sequels are any better. Welcome to I Roll It, I Review It, where 3 dice rolls pick the movie. Let's see where I'm watching. 1 is Netflix. Now roll for the genre. 16. That's fantasy. Now it's time to roll for the movie. 6. Alright, 6 is Damsel. I'm in the mood for a good fairy tale movie. I hope this is that. I'll be right back. I thought about this one for a bit and...
No, sir, I don't like it.
Well, let me get into that. Damsel's a 2024 film from director Juan Carlos Fresnadillo. This is like the 5th movie Netflix did with Millie Bobby Brown. That's not a negative, actors make studio deals all the time. I think this is just more visible since they've all come out within a pretty short period of time. The movie, without spoiling it too much, is about a young woman who marries a handsome prince, but then her life gets turned upside down in the worst possible way. She finds herself trapped in a cave system with a very cranky dragon, who spends the majority of the movie trying to eat her or set her on fire or what have you. This had good ideas, but then they pushed it way too much to be a girl boss movie when it really didn't need to be. Right out of the gate with the opening dialogue, it started off in a lame direction. It was something along the lines of, "There are fairy tales where a beautiful princess is rescued by a handsome prince, but this is not that story." Ugh. Really, the movie would have been bumped up a few points if they didn't have that voiceover. It was completely unnecessary. Brown plays Elodie, and they do a pretty good job of establishing her skills. She's not the dainty princess, she's not even a princess at all, but a peasant girl who gets married off to a prince to save her family. They show her running and doing outdoor work, so it's established that she's strong and has stamina without beating you over the head with it. Again, showing that they didn't need the lame voiceover intro. There's a surprise that's spoiled in the trailer, but really, even without the trailer, you could see it coming. Because of that, the first half hour or so felt superfluous. They could have condensed it down to about 10 or 15 minutes and it probably would have had more impact. The whole thing has Elodie being treated like a princess when everyone around her is acting slightly weird. Oh no, I'm sure this isn't going to suddenly go bad for her. When the surprise happens, I just kind of laughed. The movie was largely her surviving in the cave, and so her performance was going to make or break the film. She handled it well. The effects were mostly good, and that was the other make it or break it. The dragon looked good most of the time, but occasionally it was weak. Nothing major, and it didn't ruin the film, but every now and then it went from, "Wow, that's a cool dragon," to, "This is Panzer Dragoon on the Saturn." I think it was because the size of the dragon kept changing throughout the film. Sometimes it was huge, and other times it was small. It changed according to whatever the plot needed. Story-wise, it was ridiculously predictable. From the big surprise at the half-hour point, to the other surprise they had later in the film. If you've seen even a handful of fantasy films over your lifetime, you can figure this out easy. Oh wow, the dragon isn't really evil. It's the royal family who were the evil ones. Give me a break. The ending was kinda neat, and I did like the way it was done. Still corny, but enjoyably corny. She gets her revenge in a big bombastic way, which I wasn't entirely expecting, so that's a plus. It's just a shame the rest of the movie was so cliche-ridden and predictable. Damsel could have been much better. If it was cut by about 20 minutes, they got rid of the opening voiceover, and maybe didn't use every single fantasy cliche, I think it could have been something. I did enjoy a little bit of it, so for that, Damsel gets a mediocre. You know what? It was at least a new genre, so I'll take it. Welcome to I Roll It, I Review It, where 3 dice rolls pick the movie. First up, let's see where I'm watching. 1 is Netflix. Now roll for the genre. 6 is drama. Now it's time to roll for the movie. 4 is The Founder. All right, let's check it out. That was an interesting one. The Founder is a 2017 drama from director John Lee Hancock. It's about a traveling salesman, Ray Kroc, who's a full-time hustler, always looking for his big break. After stumbling onto a restaurant called McDonald's in San Bernardino, California, he realizes that this could be it. He convinces the brothers to let him take the concept that they came up with and franchise the business, which would make them all rich. It does, but then it also brings out the absolute worst in Kroc, who manipulates everyone around him. This was a really good movie. That said, it's one of those movies that I genuinely enjoyed, but I don't see myself in a hurry to ever watch it again. It's good, but not that kind of rewatchable good. I'm not saying that as a negative. It's just some films tell their story, and you get what you want out of the film in one viewing. Michael Keaton plays Kroc, and he's firing on all cylinders here. He's a tremendously talented actor, and is giving one of his best performances. I remember way back watching Pacific Heights and Desperate Measures, thinking about how great he is at playing a bad guy. While here, he isn't the bad guy as much as he's the manipulative snake oil salesman, who is so good at what he does, he's able to say and do all the right things to get to the top. Not to say he succeeds all the time, it's just that he manages to get ahead and completely screw over anyone who tries to get in his way, including the brothers who actually created McDonald's. I'm sure the story's embellished. I looked into it a little, and yeah, some things are changed for movie reasons, but whenever I go to see a biopic, I go in knowing I'm not getting a history lesson. I'm getting a modified history lesson. On a side note, it seems like these famous food history movies have been popping up a lot more lately. There's the Pop-Tarts one, the Cheetos one, this one, and I'm sure a bunch of others that I'm forgetting. Where's the Burger King one? The Founder was really good. Incredibly well acted, not just by Keaton, but by the rest of the cast too. Although he truly was the star of the show. The movie takes you on a journey. Initially, you feel bad for Kroc, who just seems to be like he's trying in earnest to succeed. He's a 52-year-old guy at a time when people often retired at 60. He hadn't made it yet, but he never stops trying. You root for him in the beginning, but once he makes it, he does become an absolute shitbag. However, I like that it wasn't black and white. If not for Kroc, for better or worse, fast food as we know it wouldn't exist, and we definitely wouldn't know the name McDonald's. The Founder was really good. Keaton's at the top of his game acting-wise, the story is engaging, and aside from a few scenes, it goes by pretty quickly. The editor and me would have trimmed it a few minutes, but that's just me, always looking for the superfluous. The Founder gets a thumbs up. Very solid docudrama. Welcome to I Roll It, I Review It, where 3 dice rolls pick the movie. First thing I need to see where I'm watching. 4 is Fossum. Now roll for the genre. 7 is Westerns. Alright, first time I get Westerns. While I do like spaghetti Westerns, I never really got into the American ones. Fossum has 19 subgenres, so I'm going to roll a d20. And if I get a 20, I'll pick the subgenre. 15 is sci-fi westerns. That's just about the best subgenre I could have landed on, aside from spaghetti westerns. All right, now I have to roll for the movie. 7. 7 is Welcome to Blood City. Wait a minute. Right next to that is Welcome to Blood City. Although the one I landed on is 89 minutes and it's 16 plus, but then this one is 91 minutes, but it's only 13 plus. I don't want to taint my views on this before I watch it, so I'm going to view the one I landed on, and I'm going to see what the differences is after it's over. I'll be back in a little bit. Well, obviously that was inspired by Westworld. Welcome to Blood City is a 1977 sci-fi western from director Peter Sasdy. It starts with a group waking up in the middle of nowhere. They all have amnesia and they find they each have a paper that says they're murderers. A sheriff arrives on horseback and takes them into Blood City, an old-timey western town where they're slaves. That is, unless they can kill a citizen, which will grant them a place in the town. Meanwhile, there's a group of people behind the scenes that are running things for their own reasons. This could have been better. Jack Palance is giving his usual grade A performance, but the script felt needlessly convoluted. They repeatedly explain the rules of the town, but then the rules seemingly change and nothing ever feels like it makes sense. Then you add in these people behind the scenes that change things about the town to their own likings and just makes it feel like everything is being made up as they go. What's disappointing is that with some restraint, this movie could have been really good. We discover about 15 minutes in that the whole thing is some sort of simulation. If they would have held off on the reveal, it would have been far more interesting. So the movie would be these people trying to figure out what's going on in Blood City, where some folks are invincible and others come back from the dead. The audience might think that they're supposed to be in hell or something. Then at the end, or near the end, reveal it's a simulation. Back in 1977, it would have blown people's minds. Instead, as it is now, showing the behind-the-scenes crew too early ruins any sort of surprise, and just makes it feel like this weird, no-stakes game because the rules keep changing. This looked like your typical Western with the bland gray sci-fi control rooms popping up every so often. I don't know the history of this, but considering the similarities between this and Westworld, I'm going to guess this was made to try to cash in on that. As far as the two cuts, I couldn't find anything online mentioning what the differences were, and really, I didn't feel like watching the movie again to try to figure it out. I'm going to assume it's most likely either a different production company logo in the beginning, or maybe a different scene for a TV edit. Welcome to Blood City was kind of dull for what sounds like it should have been a really neat movie. I didn't hate it, but I was starting to zone out a few times. Quality of the footage here kind of sucked too. Just like Venus and Fleur, not the fault of the movie, just the fault of the transfer. Maybe if this gets remastered to Blu-ray, I'll check it out again. In the meantime, Welcome to Blood City gets a mediocre. Welcome to I Roll It, I Review It, where 3 dice rolls pick the movie. To start, I need to see where I'm watching. For some reason, my camera didn't capture the entire roll, just the end. Very weird. So here it is. 2 is Amazon. Now to roll for the genre. 4. 4 is art house. All right, another new genre. Will this be both artsy and fartsy? Now I gotta roll for the movie. 11. 11 is gonna be... What? Final Impact. A Lorenzo Lamas movie. In the art house genre. Unless the cover art is selling the wrong film, I have a feeling that the person labeling these at Amazon is seriously trolling. All right, let's see what this is all about. Oh my god, they put a PM Entertainment movie in the art house genre. For those that don't know, PM Entertainment largely made either erotic thrillers like Sinful Intrigue or 100% action movies like Hologram Man. So Final Impact falls into the latter in that it's an action movie, although it's more of a dramatic action movie. Final Impact is from 1992 and is directed by Joseph Mary and Stephen Smoke. Anyway, Final Impact is about Nick Taylor, a former kickboxing champion who retires and opens a fight club. The club has men doing kickboxing fights and the women doing hot oil wrestling, where you can pay to oil up the women before they fight. Nick was defeated by the Evil Joe, who beat him so bad he sent him to the hospital where he had to go through months of rehab. A young promising kickboxer, Danny, asks Nick to take him under his wing, and he starts kicking his way across the country to hopefully become the new world champion. They're joined by Nick's longtime love, Maggie, played by Lorenzo Lamas' third wife, Kathleen Kinmont. This movie is about what you would expect, with a few things that were a bit of a surprise. While this is an action film, this had some of the most drama I've ever seen in a PM Entertainment film. Usually in Lorenzo Lamas movies, he always comes off looking cool, no matter what. In this, he allowed himself to look bad. At times he was a drunk, a womanizer, and a coward. The movie even showed him taking an absolute beating. A huge departure from films like Terminal Justice and Snake Eater. I gotta say, it was nice to see him playing outside of his usual roles. On a complete aside, a couple of years ago when I was a guest at the Sci-Fi Horror Fest, I'll be there again this year in about a month, August 15th and 16th. Tickets are on sale now. Lorenzo Lamas and his fiancée had dinner with all the other guests and organizers. Lorenzo was still in amazing shape and was incredibly polite. I briefly talked to him and he seemed like a really nice guy. Although, as of my recording this, he just filed for divorce from his sixth wife. Anyway, Lorenzo is playing a little outside of his usual comfort zone, and that did make this movie stand out. It also showed some of the on-again, off-again relationship woes between his character and Maggie, which I feel may have been mirroring their real relationship, since they got divorced about a year after this movie. Without spoiling too much, you know how the movie's gonna go. The kid learns how to improve via montage. Nick wants to become a better person. Maggie leaves Nick but comes back. The kid takes a beating but keeps fighting until he wins. Although I have to say the end battle was kind of anticlimactic. Danny's fighting Joe and he gets knocked down. He gets knocked down again.
You're never gonna knock me down.
And he almost loses the fight, but then he gets up and Joe just kind of stands there and lets himself repeatedly get kicked in the face until Danny wins. It was almost like they didn't have any more time for fight choreography and were like, just let the kid win. For a PM Entertainment movie, it was way outside of their usual. There were a lot of fights, but not a single explosion. Even still, the fights were few and far between. It was more training than fighting, which was okay. The training segments were shot better than some modern action movies. Not a bad movie, but one of the weaker offerings from PM Entertainment. Final Impact gets a very mild thumbs up, mostly for trying to do something outside their usual wheelhouse. It didn't all work, but I enjoyed it enough. Although it's the best art house film about kickboxing that I've ever seen.
I take a whiskey drink. I take a chocolate drink. And when I have to pee, I use the kitchen sink.
Welcome to I Roll It, I Review It, where 3 dice rolls pick the movie. To start, I need to see where I'm watching. 1 is Netflix. Now roll for the genre. 14. 14 is international. Now time to roll for the movie. 18. And that seems to be Ballerina. Wasn't that the name of the John Wick spinoff? I'm gonna go find out. No, that was not the John Wick spinoff. Apparently that was From the World of John Wick, Ballerina. Remember when spin-offs didn't need overly long explanatory titles? Anyway, this is Ballerina from South Korea. The movie was released in 2023 and is directed by Chung Hyun Lee. It's about a professionally trained ex-bodyguard named Akju. She's a very angry, lonely person until she meets Min-hee, a free-spirited ballerina. The two become very close, and Min-hee helps Akju to appreciate life more. That is until one day, Akju finds that Min-hee has ended her own life. She discovers Min-hee's last wish was for her to kill the guy who had been extorting her for money and sex, which is what drove her to suicide. Akju then goes on a revenge spree to discover those responsible for this and kill them. I enjoyed this but had one major problem. The way they shot almost all the action sequences was horrendous. There were so many whip pans that you never got a good feeling for the action. I know what they were going for, but it was just as annoying as shaky cam. I don't understand the reasoning for this either. The actress who played Akju did all her own stunts and knows how to fight. By flinging the camera all over the place, it was hard to see what was happening and annoyed me more than anything. If you want to hide some sloppy fighting or bad choreography, you do it with these sorts of camera tricks. However, if you have quality people working on the fights, why wouldn't you want to show them off? There were times where it felt like they just glued the camera to a paint mixer and threw it on the ground. Towards the end, there was a big action sequence that was shot well and was awesome. It was the lead versus like 30 guys. If they would have shot all the action like they did in this one sequence, I would have given this a very enthusiastic thumbs up. So it showed it was possible, they just didn't do it for the other scenes for some reason. I've seen other Korean action films that had incredibly well shot action. This felt sloppy. Look at the hallway scene from Oldboy. Incredible. They were trying to do the frenetic, out of control vibes that fights can get into, but it just ended up as a confusing mess. Aside from that, the story was a good revenge tale. Nothing hugely groundbreaking, but a fairly solid story about a girl getting revenge for her friend's death. The movie moved along well, and it was competently shot, except for most of the action scenes. The use of color was appreciated, and everything looked very slick. A great deal of care went into the world they were building, but they fumbled so hard on the fights. I feel bad because everything was good except for most of what audiences would be tuning in for. Although looking at the comments, I see people praising the film over the fights, which had me very confused. Go back and look at any old kung fu movie, and you'll see amazingly well choreographed fights. This is just a mixture of shaky cams and quick cuts that are almost on par with a more recent Steven Seagal movie. At times, the action scenes feel more like I'm watching a music video. I did like that Akju was using guns and other weapons. It made it more realistic than just this tiny girl taking down an army of dudes. Jeon Jong-seo was great in the lead. I enjoyed her performance very much, and I think she was cheated in that we couldn't see the work that she was putting into the fights. All in all, it's a flawed revenge film that I enjoyed. I would have loved it if the action was all shot like that one sequence at the end, but sadly it wasn't, so I liked it, but didn't love it. It had the potential to be an action classic, but instead, it's a pretty okay action movie. Ballerina gets a mild thumbs up out of me. Tune in for the story, and stick around for the big action scene at the end. Welcome to I Roll It, I Review It, where 3 dice rolls pick the movie. First thing I need to do is see where I'm watching. 3 is Tubi. Now to roll for the genre. 8 is comedy. Now to roll for the movie. 10 is gonna be Grown Ups 2. Oh, Tubi, why have you forsaken me? Alright, to be fair, I saw Grown Ups 1 a few years ago, and I didn't hate it. It wasn't good, but there were some okay parts, and I'm expecting this to be more of the same. So let's find out. That was pretty terrible. Grown Ups is from 2013 and was directed by Dennis Dugan, who did a few Happy Madison films, like Happy Gilmore and I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry. I was kind of shocked because he also directed one of my all-time favorite comedies, Brain Donors. But then he also directed one of the worst movies I've ever seen, Jack and Jill. This movie, while a sequel, is a standalone sequel. It revolves around Lenny and all of his friends and family. The movie begins with a setup that lets you know exactly what this thing will be. Lenny wakes up to his ridiculously hot wife, Salma Hayek, because there's a deer in their bedroom. The deer then gets startled and pees all over the place. It then runs through the house, scares the kids, and catches Lenny's oldest boy whacking off in the bathroom. After that, it's lots of pee, fart, poop, and boobs jokes. The guys all act like idiots, and the whole thing comes down to the women going, "Oh, you rapscallions!" They tried to put in lots of fan service for the men, but really it came off as forced and weird. This is coming from somebody who watches tons of exploitation films. Everyone's an exaggerated caricature of a human, which led me to kind of understand what they were going for. The movie is more or less an adult fantasy. Not your regular kind of fantasy fairy tale, but an outlandish but realistic fantasy. What I mean is everyone in the movie is either loaded or comfortable enough to not have to worry about time or money. They all live in this town where they can act like children, and while they get hurt, it's getting cartoon hurt. So they can be violently knocked across several aisles in a Kmart, but suffer no real injuries. The local cops are their friends, and they're just as goofy as everyone else. Lenny and the group are all friends that see each other on a daily basis. This is another one of those things where I bring up that this is some kind of adult fantasy. I haven't seen some of my friends in like months because we all have kids and lives and schedules, and it's just hard. Towards the end, they all say, "Hey, let's have a big 80s party." And they manage to pull the whole thing together in a few minutes. Everyone has costumes, the party's catered, and they even have a live band. Where but in movies could this happen? What reality is this? Then I realized the whole thing takes place in the same day. Maybe this is what it's like to be an adult that no longer has to worry about money? The movie was all nostalgia bait, from everything to the soundtrack to the references to the big 80s party towards the end. It felt like a bunch of sketches they all came up with that they just stitched together. It's like Adam Sandler wakes up and a deer pees on him, and then he becomes a school bus driver, and then Kevin James's wife takes him to the car wash with the hot college girls, but then the college guys end up washing the car, and then Colin Quinn is working at the ice cream machine, but it looks like he's pooping, and you get the idea. I will say the cast is ridiculous. It's all the Happy Madison crew, but also some surprise folks like Shaq and Steve Austin. Taylor Lautner appears to show off what he learned in that parkour movie. The one bad kid totally reminded me of Nelson. The whole movie culminates in the ultimate adult fantasy where a bunch of old dudes beat up the evil college frat and send them running. Then Lenny announces he learned how to burp, sneeze, and fart right before he bones Salma Hayek. The end. I hate to use the term, but it's really the only one that fits. The jokes are cringeworthy. There's also a lot of dad jokes that you see coming a mile away. The jokes also go on forever. They really push the adults acting like children thing. I laughed once at the Chris Rock joke. Overall, I enjoy the old Adam Sandler movies like Happy Gilmore and The Waterboy. However, once he became a dad, his comedy went in this weird direction, kind of like Eddie Murphy. I don't get it. I'm a father and my sense of humor is about the same as it was when I was 12. Your movie fails to a ridiculous degree if it has poop and fart jokes, and I'm not laughing. Go and listen to one of my old videos, and you'll see that my stupid juvenile humor hasn't changed. I know the first movie made a ton of money, so the cast was paid well for the sequel. Perhaps they should have taken some of that money and tweaked the script? What a mess. Grown Ups 2 stunk. I still like Adam Sandler, the person. I've heard nothing but nice things about him from the people who worked with him, but this movie's bad. I did kind of get what they were going for about the halfway point, but by then, I just wanted it to end. They probably had a good time making it, but that didn't translate for the people watching. Grown Ups 2 gets a thumbs down. Thumbs down, thumbs down, thumbs down. Welcome to I Roll It, I Review It, where 3 dice rolls pick the movie. To start, I need to see where I'm watching. 2 is Amazon. Now to roll for the genre. 15, that's gonna be sci-fi. Okay, now to roll for the movie. 12. 12 is I Still See You. 11 was Drive Angry, and if you haven't seen that one, you really should check it out. It's a fun movie. However, I'm not sure about this one. Let's give it a look. Good idea, poor execution. Also, it's another Bella Thorne movie. Although, to be fair, she was better in this than she was in Time Is Up. I Still See You is from 2018 and was directed by Scott Speer. 10 years after the apocalypse, Bella Thorne has a bad haircut and doesn't like to wear bras. The apocalypse was caused by an explosion at a lab that wipes out thousands of people. However, their ghosts are left behind. Well, not exactly ghosts, but more so their images that keep being played back like a recording. So every day at the same time, you can see the ghosts of people who died doing the same task they were doing when they died. Veronica, or Ronnie, finds out a ghost is communicating with her, and she joins with a classmate who seems to be channeling a young Joaquin Phoenix to try to make sense of what's going on. This movie was based on the novel Break My Heart 1,000 Times from 2012. I don't know how close it is to the source material. At its core, it seemed like a really good idea, but in execution, it's just kind of bland. It feels like any of the 80 zillion other young adult adaptations. Here we are 10 years after the cataclysmic event, and things don't seem that bad. They still have power, water, and food. They also still have plenty of lip filler. Much like Time Is Up, this is another movie where they insist that Bella Thorne do voiceovers with a character whose name starts with V.
The event took people we cared about, but it also left a part of them behind.
If I had a nickel for every time Bella Thorne was in a movie where her character has a name that starts with V and does voiceover narrations, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right? There were weird, unintentionally funny moments, like our hero is having to dodge ghost fish, or the girl in school that notices that Ronnie's right ear is bleeding while looking at the left side of her face. As Ronnie and Kirk look into things, they discover all is not as it seems, and I won't say what happens is 100% predictable. It just didn't really feel like a surprise. More like an, oh, yeah, it sounds about right. I Still See You wasn't nearly as bad as Time Is Up, but it still was pretty dull. I didn't hate it, but I didn't enjoy it. With that, I Still See You gets a thumbs down. No more Bella Thorne movies, please. Welcome to I Roll It, I Review It, where 3 dice rolls pick the movie. I'm sorry, for some reason my camera didn't start recording until after I rolled, so this is the footage I have. I'm not sure what's going on with it. This is like the second time this happened. Very weird. Anyway, it landed on 4, which is awesome. Now to roll for the genre. 16 is action. Now to roll for the subgenre. 6. 6 is Femme Force. Now I gotta roll for the movie. 17. That looks like it's gonna be Redline. I think I remember seeing the trailer for this one a while back. Well, let's see if it's any good. Oh boy, that was Temu Fast and the Furious. Redline is a 2007 film from stuntman turned director Andy Chang. It's about super hot Natasha, a car expert / singer who gets roped into this high-stakes illegal drag racing ring. There are these multimillionaires that have so much money they're bored. So they do things like bet someone $2 million they can get a driver to do a 4-hour drive in 2 hours just to deliver them Viagra. One guy sees that Natasha is an incredible racer and decides that she needs to be his new driver. And another guy goes bonkers and kidnaps her. Thankfully, this Air Force vet fell in love with her the night before, so he goes on a rampage through this rich guy's compound to rescue her. Lots of car chases with exotic cars, explosions, crashes, and other stuff ensues. On a side note, it's kind of funny that this was under Femme Force when really, the lead female ends up having to get rescued by the lead guy more than a few times. She's not exactly Celine from Underworld. Apparently this movie was loosely based on a guy named Daniel Sadek. He co-wrote the script. Sadek was a 3rd-grade dropout from Lebanon who moved to the US and started a real estate business that was so successful he was making $5 million a month. Although making that much money was not legit, and the whole thing was pretty much a huge scam. In 5 years, he wrote $3.8 billion in mortgages, mostly to people with bad credit. He used that money to buy a bunch of houses and expensive cars. He put all of his money into the film to showcase his car collection and help his fiancée Nadia to break out of soap operas and become a movie star. The movie cost $31 million to make and only pulled in $8.2 million worldwide. I now remember this movie because it was the one where there was a promo with Eddie Griffin where he accidentally drove a Ferrari Enzo, one of Sadek's cars, into a concrete barrier and destroyed it. Oops, that's an expensive goof. Since the movie was a huge flop, this led to Sadek having financial problems, which led to him having to declare bankruptcy a short time later. There's a much larger story here about how all of Sadek's financial dealings went belly up after the film bombed. Really, that story would make for a more interesting movie than Redline. On top of all that, Nadia broke up with him and married someone else. So a spoiled rich scam artist made a terrible film as a way to stroke his ego, only to have it backfire and screw up his life. Redline is a terrible movie. It's one big ego trip by a guy with a third-grade education who still ended up outsmarting people with a lot of money. The cars were cool to look at, and yes, Nadia is stunning. Although I'll be honest, when I first saw the trailers for this back in the day, I thought Nadia was Tiffany Amber Thiessen. If your movie is filled with unlikable characters doing stupid things mixed with really poorly shot action sequences, who cares? Why would I be invested in a bunch of rich assholes that are blowing their money on nonsense? I've seen movies where the bad guys are the focus, but they're well written and interesting. This causes you to want to root for the bad guy. Here, some millionaire douchebags are throwing money around because they have nothing better to do? Go screw. This movie was just plain bad. Redline gets a thumbs down. Welcome to I Roll It, I Review It, where 3 dice rolls pick the movie. Starting off, I need to see where I'm watching. 3 is Tubi. Now roll for the genre. 12. 12 is action. Again? Well, whatever I end up getting, I hope it's better than Redline. Now let me roll for the movie. 1. 1 is The Moderator. Some weird rolls today. Let's see how the movie is. That wasn't too bad. The Moderator is from 2022 and is directed by Zor Fassi Firi. It's about a leggy supermodel assassin who finds out her friends were raped, murdered, and the footage of the act was uploaded onto the internet. She travels to Morocco to find out who did this and kill them. While traveling around murdering these people, it catches the attention of Interpol, who thinks there's a new international serial killer out there. The assassin's alias is Maya Sneak, which made me laugh. She also went by Dr. Acula at one point. I'm not kidding. The movie has some decent action, and the actress playing the lead at least seems to be doing some of her own stunts. At 5'9", she was doing some aggressive MMA-style moves, which at least looked kind of believable, but when they didn't shake the camera all over the place. They kind of played it smart, in that Maya is not overpowering guys. She's using weapons and speed to her advantage. She still takes a good beating, and they do a decent job of balancing the real with the ridiculous. Oh, it still gets silly at some points, but overall, it's not too bad. Alright, there's one part that's pretty bad. One thing happens I'm pretty sure would have landed her in the morgue, or at the very least, the hospital. It's not as bad as some movies that I've seen, but they were skirting the line. Some of the action scenes could have been better, but at least they weren't Paul Greengrass level of action scene. There's also a subplot about this social media music star that's a brutal rapist. There's a scene about halfway that shows the whole thing, and it's one of the more uncomfortable ones out there. Not as bad as Irreversible, but really makes you hate the guy. Spoiler, but you probably could have seen this coming anyway. He gets his comeuppance. Although I felt his death could have been a little more painful considering what we saw him do a few times. When Maya's almost caught, what she did had me laughing so hard I had to pause the movie. Spoiler, again, for anyone who cares. Maya gets caught, and rather than being arrested, she jumps to her death. She did the meme. Irma Lake played the lead Maya, and she was fine. I think her acting could use a little work, but she definitely looked the part. She'd be the perfect casting for Hannah Stone if they ever made a live-action Wanted Dead movie. This was her first movie, and she has another one coming out this year. The Moderator was okay. Decent action, corny story, beautiful lead. Not worthy of a thumbs up, but definitely a mid. I didn't mind watching it, but I'm not in a hurry to see it again. Welcome to I Roll It, I Review It, where 3 dice rolls pick the movie. To start, I need to see where I'm watching. 1 is Netflix. Now roll for the genre. 12. 12 is thriller. Now to roll for the movie. 9. 9 is Now You See Me. I remember seeing the trailers for this quite a while ago. Let's see how it is. That was not at all the movie that I was expecting, in a good way. Now You See Me is from 2013 and was directed by Louis Lederer. It's about a group of magicians who goes by the name of the Four Horsemen. Each one of them has their own special set of skills. They do these huge elaborate magic shows that end with them somehow doing a bank heist while still on stage. They then give the money to the audience, which makes them insanely popular very quick. This, of course, catches the attention of the FBI, and since one of the banks that was robbed was overseas, it attracts Interpol. The magicians are brought into custody, but there's no evidence that can prove what they did, so unless the feds admit that magic is real, they have to let them go. The feds call in a magic debunker played by Morgan Freeman to help them figure out what the Four Horsemen are up to and try to stop them. However, the magicians always seem to be one step ahead of the feds no matter what they try to do, which drives them nuts. This was a surprisingly good movie. I did not expect to like it as much as I did. I enjoyed the idea a lot. This group of cocky magicians that are outsmarting the officials to become this sort of Robin Hood type legend. The cast was terrific, with Woody Harrelson, Jesse Eisenberg, Dave Franco, Isla Fisher, and Michael Caine. It also has that pile of mediocrity Mark Ruffalo, but he's okay here. I have to admit, the movie, much like David Copperfield, threw in so many misdirections that I wasn't sure where it would end up. It was a clever film that kept me guessing. At one point, I was sure I knew what they were doing, but then nope, it was just a trick. I usually never fall for those, so bravo, movie. Production was also very slick. Many scenes are shot with a constantly moving camera. Not shaky cam, but lots of arc shots and other moves to make the film very engaging. I enjoyed this a lot. Apparently, it was a pretty big hit, so they made part 2, and part 3 is out later this year. After this one, I'm looking forward to checking out the other 2. I thought Now You See Me was going to be a dumb movie that tried to be smart, but it ended up being a smart movie that made me feel dumb. I'll happily give this one a thumbs up. Welcome to I Roll It, I Review It, where 3 dice rolls pick the movie. To start, I need to see where I'm watching. 1 is Netflix. Again. Now to roll for the genre. 14 is international. Now I gotta roll for the movie. 8. 8 is gonna be Officer Black Belt. Alright, this looks like it might be a winner. Let's check it out. That was way more serious than I was expecting. Officer Black Belt is a Korean action drama from 2024. It's about Lee Jung-do, an incredibly skilled martial artist that is always looking for a challenge. One night he sees a bad guy beating up a cop and he steps in to rescue him. The cop then asks him if he wants to join the force to become a probation officer to help fight crime. At first, everything seems to be going well. That is until they release a violent P. Diddy from prison. The police are keeping tabs on him, but eventually he escapes and kidnaps a young girl. The team are then in a race against the clock to rescue the girl before something even more awful happens. This was an interesting one. It starts off pretty lighthearted and fun. Lee goes after the bad guys who are breaking parole and quickly gives them a good beating. It's enjoyable and even a little bit silly. Then the main bad guy gets introduced and the whole thing goes in a super dark direction. I'm talking really dark. I didn't mind because I thought the story was good, but I could see some people getting tonal whiplash. I mean, you go from jokes about why the one heavyset sweaty guy is nicknamed Moisture, to the cops unveiling a whole PDF underworld. The movie's a little light on the action for the first hour, but as it goes on, the action gets longer and more brutal. The final few sequences are very well done. Some guys set up Officer Black Belt, and he's in a battle against dozens of henchmen. Just one of the really solid action scenes that happens later in the film. This movie, unlike Ballerina, has action that is easy to follow. The camera's far enough back, and the editing is lots of long cuts to let the scenes breathe. One major thing I liked about the film was that in the beginning, Lee was bored because he was winning all the time. He assumed that no matter what he did, he'd be great at it. So after joining the force, he gets a harsh reality check and loses, more than once. He realizes for the first time that he's not invincible. He has a genuine character arc, and shows how he goes from cocky to humble. I appreciated the film for that. He's incredibly skilled at what he does, but now he's using those skills to help people instead of just showing off. Officer Black Belt is really good. Great fights, a unique story, and more great fights. The movie took what could have been just a fun martial arts film and sent it in a dark direction that I truly was not expecting, which made the movie so much more interesting. Officer Black Belt gets a thumbs up. Definitely wouldn't mind if they made another one of these. Welcome to I Roll It, I Review It, where 3 dice rolls pick the movie. To start, I need to see where I'm watching. 2 is Amazon. Now to roll for the genre. 19. 19 is horror. It's been a while. I think the last one of these was The Sand. Anyway, now to roll for the movie. 2. 2 is Forget Me Not. I think I remember hearing about this one. Let's give it a look. Oh boy, where to begin? Forget Me Not is from 2009 and was directed by Tyler Oliver. It's about a group of the worst people in the world who don't care about anything except for themselves. One night after drinking heavily, they play hide and seek in a graveyard, where they run into a random girl. The random girl joins in the game, but then she jumps off a cliff to her death. Why is there a cliff in a cemetery? After that, the group begin to die off one by one as they're killed by Not Sadako from The Ring. Every time one of them dies, everyone forgets they ever existed except for Sandy, the one in the group who isn't completely horrible. So what we're left with is a bunch of unlikable people dying in horrific ways, and we're supposed to care. Even though the people are forgotten when they die, they come back as these gray duct tape garbage bag demons with exaggerated mouths. At first I thought this was a PG-13 film because there's a bunch of sex scenes with no one getting naked. The most ridiculous one is where Chad is boning Hannah and she still has her bra on. I point this out because right after they finish, he says this.
You asshole, how could you?
I mean, have you seen your body?
So hot that he couldn't be bothered to launch that bra across the room? Then there's Lex, who's such a hussy, she acts like trash in front of her poor dad.
Who wants some?
Crying out loud, I'm right here.
Hannah then tests the limits of a towel as it somehow stays glued to her as she's fighting for her life against monsters. I didn't realize the movie was actually R-rated until one guy gets killed and it's super bloody. It stands out in the weirdest way. It's like watching a made-for-TV movie where somebody spliced in footage from Hostel. At one point, I assumed they were all college students, but then someone points out they just graduated and are supposed to be high school students. Another movie with high school students that look 25. This movie was really bad. The saving grace was that the girls were pretty and they did try to find reasons to put them in bikinis. However, their characters all stunk. The girls, the guys, even the supposed hero Sandy. Of course, we find out that this whole thing is because of a prank gone wrong when they were kids. Sandy was friends with the weird girl Angela, but she got hurt during the prank, which landed her in a coma for years. During that time, Sandy forgot about her, so Angela sends her spirit out to get revenge and make everyone forget these people exist. This is when I remembered a book called Floater, which is pretty much the same thing minus the forgetting aspect. It's about a kid who is a high school outcast, and he spends most of his time by himself. During that time, he figures out astral projection. In a prank gone wrong, A bunch of bullies are responsible for him drowning, and before he drowns, he projects his spirit outside of his body. He then spends the next decade trying to figure out how to manipulate things in the real world, and plans his revenge. It's a cool book from 1988 that would make for a really good horror movie if done right. Oh, that leads me to Stealth Bella Thorne. While she's not the star, she snuck into this one as the younger version of the girl who was bullied. How many movies has she been in that I keep running into her? Anyway, Angela's in a coma and somehow is able to make everyone die. Sandy realizes this and decides what she needs to do is to shut off the machine that goes bing, which will release Angela's soul or something. I'm sure there's a deeper meaning in there, but they fumbled the film so hard it's not evident. Along with everything else wrong with the movie, it was jump scare central. Forget Me Not was not good. A dull, lifeless horror film with some occasional over-the-top violence, but then it goes back to mediocrity. The idea wasn't bad, but the execution was seriously lacking. The movie was from 2009, and as such, it was pretty late in the wave of American films influenced by J-horror. The monster spirits looked and moved like the ones from The Grudge, Cairo, and others. Only here, they were more silly than scary. A shame, I was hoping this would be a good horror film. However, Forget Me Not gets a thumbs down. For sneaking Bella Thorne into a horror movie, I'm giving these dice a timeout.